Okay, state your name and the court that you're running for.
Catherine Goodman. I'm running for Judge of Tarrant County Probate Court Number 1.
Okay, why are you running for that office?
I'm running for this office because I am a highly experienced attorney. I've had 23 years of experience in probate court, and I feel that the citizens of this county deserve a judge who has knowledge and experience in this area of the law. I'm a board-certified attorney, and there are only 10 counties in Texas out of all of our counties that have statutory probate courts. It's a highly specialized area of the law, and the judge of this court needs to have a specialization in this area of the law as well.
Okay, and what do you believe the proper role of government is?
The proper role of government is to carry out the laws as written. The government needs to adhere to the Constitution, the original intent of the Constitution, but the three branches of the government need to be clearly separated. So the legislature needs to write the laws, the judiciary needs to enforce the laws as written, and the executive branch needs to serve its purposes.
When and for what reason should state or local government be allowed to seize private property under eminent domain?
Eminent domain needs to occur only if a judicial procedure has been initiated and under judicial, I guess what I'm trying to say is judicial regulation. We can't just have that occurring for no reason and without remuneration to the parties which have been aggrieved.
Okay. Is Texas in need of civil asset forfeiture reform?
Reform, yes, absolutely. I agree with the platform of the Texas GOP on this, and I certainly do agree with Senator Burton's efforts in this regard. And I appreciate her efforts, and I hope that she continues those in the next legislative session.
Okay. What is your position on marriage rights?
Marriage rights? Well, I believe in marriage, and that occurs between a man and a woman, and that is what the intent was, and I adhere to that. Marriage can be dissolved by a judge, but I really believe that we need to try to work it out and stay together. As a judge running for probate court, these issues do arise sometimes because judges are sometimes required to determine whether a marriage exists either at law or by common law. So if that were to occur in the probate court, that judge would have to look at the circumstances that exist and the law that exists at that time and apply it under those circumstances.
Okay. What are the top 3 issues for your campaign?
Well, the top 3 issues for my campaign are to, first of all, I'm trying to educate everybody in the county that the need to have an experienced and qualified judge take over this bench. Some things that I would like to see occur in probate court number 1 would be to utilize the associate judge some more. I think that specifically in probate court number 1, he's not being utilized, and that's causing a backup and causing the court to not be as efficient as it could be. I'd also like to see a better use of the budget. It's difficult because probate court number 1, the budget is really large. It's well over $2 million, and there are at least 13 people employed by that court. I think what most people don't understand, though, is most of them are county employees. So there's not much that the judge of that court can do to modify or somehow eliminate positions in that court. So they have to look at ways to making it more efficient. So my number 2 suggestion, I think, would be to try to make the workers more efficient. I'd like to see cross-training. I'd like to see people be able to do other people's jobs. So if person A is not there and person A's responsibilities are to do 1, 2, and 3, when that person's not there, person B can come in and take over, so there's not such a backlog in that court. And another thing I would like to see implemented is probably more of an uncontested docket. Quite frankly, it's difficult to get a hearing in that court. So I'd like to see us to be more timely, and if that means having the associate judge hear the uncontested docket more often or having the judge be there more to have that heard, I'm willing to do it, and I'm willing to start earlier, and I'm willing to get that done for the taxpayers.
Okay. And what are the top 3 things that make you more qualified than your opponents?
Well, number one, and I've already mentioned it, I'm board certified. Was licensed in 1994 and I graduated from Baylor Law, and I took my board certification in estate planning and probate law, which is this area of the law that probate judges hear. So I received that board certification in 2001. So I'm more qualified and because I've devoted my career specifically to probate, estate planning, guardianship, and matters that this court hears. Number two, I'm an expert in this area of the law on a local and a statewide level. I've written papers, I've presented seminars at a statewide level, and in fact, I believe most of my opponents have attended at least one, if not more, than the seminars that I've written. And number three, I've had the privilege of working with the committees at the State Bar of Texas on drafting conservative guardianship and probate legislation, which has been enacted by Governor Abbott and Governor Rick Perry. So these are qualifications that I believe none of my other candidates possess, and what makes me the better candidate for this court.
And can you briefly describe your political experience, any experience as an election volunteer, staffer, candidate, or office holder in any offices that you've worked for or volunteered?
Sure. So I have not been as active a Republican candidate, in the party as I have been in other areas of the law. And the reason, other areas, of volunteerism. And the reason for this is quite simple. I didn't expect Judge King to retire, and I didn't expect the predecessor to probate court number 2 to retire. We only have 2 probate courts in Tarrant County, and both of those judges had been here for a very long time, probably 35 and 25 years. That's how specialized this area of the law is. So I'm a working mother, I'm a wife, and I have devoted my spare time to working in my area of the law. So I've done a lot of pro bono projects with probate and guardianship work. I've done my legislative work, and I've spoken at seminars throughout the state of Texas to better qualify people in this area of the law. And I've also been involved with my children's schools, so I've worked as a volunteer at a very local level. I've been PTA president when no one else would do that. And if you want to understand how that works, anyone can tell you that's the most political of almost all positions. But I've also been a volunteer at nonprofit organizations. I've served as president of Alliance for Children, which is a nonprofit agency that works with the sheriff of the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office and the sheriffs and other partner agencies to help families and children suffering from child abuse. I've also been a very good Republican, so I've voted consistently in primaries, in general elections, in local elections, and in runoffs. So I take my role as a conservative Republican very seriously. I've also been involved, though, at a local level in politics. I've helped friends in school board, and I've helped my friends in city council elections. And I feel that although those elections are considered nonpartisan, I think we all know that people really do have a political preference when they serve in those positions. And that's a very good opportunity for us to elect people who have our conservative values because they serve our communities. So I've been very involved in other areas, and there's only so many hours in the day, unfortunately.
Justin, do you have any questions?
Yes, sir. What will you do to improve the lives, families, and communities of those that enter your court?
I think that's a very good question. Probate court touches so many people, and the people who come before probate court are probably grieving or they're going through some circumstance that's not ideal. I think the number one thing I could do in probate court number 1 is to make that experience a little bit nicer. People are going to be welcome in probate court number 1 no matter what the circumstance is. They're going to feel like it's not going to be as scary or as demeaning as perhaps people have come to expect. So customer service is going to improve. The hours are going to be broadened, and they're going to feel welcome as they can be considering the circumstances. And we're going to try to make it more efficient because people, although they're going to be there, they don't want to be there, quite frankly. So we're going to do that. And like I said, I gave several specific examples of things we can do to make the process a lot more easier for them.
Great. Drugs and alcohol are a large part of this court. How do you plan to approach and evaluate these very difficult situations?
Well, I think that goes back to the whole aspect of mental illness in probate court. Mental illness is unfortunately just a problem at whole as our society, a larger problem for our society as a whole. We have to be cognizant of that, but there is a remedy in place to try to deal with people with those problems in probate court. Unfortunately, guardianship is not always a good alternative for people struggling with those issues. So we have to work with our district attorney's office to work through the mental health process to see if that's a viable alternative. And if a guardianship is appropriate, we will work through the law and see if that's going to work in the situation. But that's really the attorney's jobs to bring forth cases to the judge and have the judge apply the law as it's written at the time and based upon the facts that's presented.
Do you feel the courts can do a better job of utilizing faith-based organizations and recovery programs?
Oh, definitely, but that's always an option because as a judge in probate court, we're always supposed to consider less restrictive alternatives to guardianship, and in fact, that has to be considered. That's always been the law. It's not anything new that has arisen within the last few years. So if that's a viable alternative, we can certainly look at that and encourage the attorneys, especially the court-appointed attorneys, to look at any alternative available to lessen a guardianship.
Okay, and is there anything you'd like to tell the voters or the board members here?
Oh, yes, certainly I would. I don't know if everybody is as familiar with probate court as some of us are, and hopefully not, because it's such a specialized area of the law. So I like to give the example when I'm trying to explain to people why this election is so important to those of us living in Tarrant County. As I said, there's only 10 counties in Texas with statutory probate courts. It's so specialized. I like to give the analogy of if you need a medical procedure, say you need to have a cataract taken out or perhaps a knee replaced, where do you go to get that looked at? Do you go to a general practitioner? No, you don't. You go see an orthopedic specialist or an eye surgeon and perhaps a board-certified doctor who's had many years of experience, who's an expert in that area of medicine. You get referrals from friends and neighbors, and you want to make sure that doctor's had over hundreds, maybe even thousands of experiences with that type of surgery that you need. That's exactly what this court needs. Someone who's had years of experience, hundreds of cases in probate and guardianship, mental illness, and all kinds of other cases that come before this specialized court. So when it's time to have surgery, you go see a specialist. When it's time to elect a judge of probate court number 1, you need to elect a specialist. I'm Catherine Goodman. I'm running for judge of probate court number 1, and I'm a specialist in this area of the law. I'm asking for your vote, and I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
And is there a website to send the voters?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. Yes, www.cgoodmanforjudge.com.